Hi, this is On Your Mark. Today we're here with Ken, who has his own program as well. What's it called?
Merkaba Fitness.
Merkaba Fitness. Come check that out, the link below. All right, so tell me some more about Coconut Creek here.
Well, it's a very narrow city in the sense that it's much longer than it is wide. It stretches from it's from Pompano to the southeast to Coral Springs in the northwest. It shares a border with Boca Raton at the center north of it, and then to the west you have Margate. To the direct west you have Margate. So it's kind of surrounded by a lot of cities. It basically goes up and down the main street, which is called Lyons Road. Really, most of Coconut Creek is just built around that one road. And as soon as you get away from Lyons Road, you're not really in Coconut Creek anymore. Like now, we've just left Coconut Creek as we approach the turnpike.
Wow, and you can't tell, like...
Yeah, not so much. You see Butterfly World there to your right. Yeah, so they say that Coconut Creek is the butterfly capital of the world. I don't know if that's true, but that's Coconut Creek's claim to fame.
Huh. And you said it's basically kind of like living in Boca, but more affordable, right?
I wouldn't say it's like living in Boca. Boca's definitely a very wealthy area. Coconut Creek is more of a, middle class, maybe in some parts of Coconut Creek, upper middle class neighborhood. So it's not quite like Boca. You don't have that level of wealth. But what you do have in Coconut Creek are a lot of 55 and older communities. So the average age in Coconut Creek is older than the average for South Florida.
Oh, okay. I see.
And then one other interesting thing about Coconut Creek is that when you don't notice it really from the main streets, but horse ranching is a big deal.
Really?
Like horse breeding, actually. And there's a place in Coconut Creek where all of the homes are basically horse farms, and they have like show horses there with beautiful coats of fur, and they braid the tails and stuff, and they teach them how to kind of prance around and do the whole dancing thing that the horses, the purebred horses do.
Wow.
So there's horses like that in Coconut Creek, and when you go to those estates, a lot of the people have like horse statues out in front of their homes. So I would say that those are probably the most upscale homes in Coconut Creek, but you don't see a lot of that in Boca in terms of like horse breeding.
I don't think you see much of that anywhere in South Florida, except maybe like Southwest Ranches.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's kind of surprising. Maybe like further south, like Homestead or something.
Probably Homestead. I'm sure in parts of Palm Beach.
Wow. And I think it's pretty convenient to get around by the highways here. You're basically connected to the Turnpike and the Saugus Expressway.
Yep. Which is great. It is very convenient, but you got to pay for it.
Yeah, so if you live in this area, it's easy to get around South Florida. It's just you have to live by the toll roads.
Right.
Yeah.
And I never really was a fan of having to use the Turnpike, but now that I live out this way and I have to use it, I prefer it to I-95, which is the main highway that runs up and down the East Coast in the United States, but it's very congested most of the day, so I prefer living by the Turnpike now.
So would this be like typical traffic here, or is it like usually more or less than this?
It's definitely usually more than this. It's July 4th weekend, so we're not having to deal with rush hour right now. But even though it gets worse than this, the Turnpike is generally always moving. It's not common that you totally get stuck on the Turnpike unless you're in the middle of rush hour and you're much further south, closer to Miami.
Because it's more of a toll road, so
right.
It has less traffic.
Yeah, and this is already western South Florida. It's less populated than out east, where I-95 runs through all the major cities: Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood.
Yeah, that's something we need to also explain, the difference between east and west parts of South Florida. East is basically like where the majority of the population is, where all the high-rises are, where the beach is, where the trains run through. If you ever use a train, most people go.
Most businesses.
Yeah, most businesses are out there. And the western part is, I would say, maybe more residential.
Yeah, South Florida really started by the beach, and as the population grew, people slowly moved west and west and west over time, either in order to get away from the overcrowdedness or in order to build newer homes on bigger land, or cheaper, more affordable land. So as time's gone on, the population has moved away from the east, really from the southeast in Miami, and then spreading north and northwest into Broward County.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And first, people used to live along the railway, the actual railroad that came down. Flagler Railroad was the initial place where people were living along until it became less of the way to travel. Now you 100% need a car to live here.
Right.
You think that's true?
That's absolutely true. You need a car to live in South Florida. I mean, there's probably exceptions. If you're someone who works from home and you pick somewhere to live that's really close to everything, it's feasible. But even then, your social life's probably going to be limited, because when you make friends in South Florida, they live all over the place. It's not everyone living close together in the same city.
And that's my issue with my new city. It's a more spread out city, so I can't just hang out with my friends as easily as just in the same block where it used to be.
Yeah. I thought that problem was solved for you in South Korea.
In my old city, but my new city is growing rapidly so fast, and there's so many different new cities and communities all over the place.
Everyone's all over. Philip times.
All right, so this is a pretty common sight here in South Florida, pretty much everywhere in America, where you have to come in and fill up your car. You have these very large gas stations that can service many cars, but you need to because everybody drives. Like we just said, there is no way to live in Florida and not have a car, unless you basically live in a very well-connected community, and everyone and everything you need is right around you, which is very, very, very rare in Florida or America in general, unless you're in New York City or Chicago or something like that.
States find it odd how you need to drive everywhere in Florida, and I've traveled extensively throughout the United States because of my work. And most places are not like Florida. I would say most places you can probably get around with some decent public transportation.
Really?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's definitely the case.
You went to places like Texas and
and
Dallas, North Carolina. Really?
Dallas,
that's possible?
Dallas has a very good public transportation system. They have a train that actually people use that goes through downtown, and it's populated.
Wow.
It's a large city with a beautiful park at its center. And granted, I didn't use public transportation much in Dallas because I had a rental car. But I would say that things are close enough there that your Uber bill on a monthly basis won't be that expensive, because things aren't that far away if you're staying in the city of Dallas.
Oh, and what are we doing here?
We're paying a toll, $1.25.
Oh, and
so now one city in Texas that's exactly like Florida in terms of highways, and
I'm gonna guess Houston.
Yes, it's exactly like Florida. As a matter of fact, if you were to just parachute into a certain highway in Houston,
you couldn't tell the difference.
You would not be able to tell the difference between where 595 and I-95 come together in that Hollywood-Davie area.
It looks the whole highway complex.
Yes, it looks exactly the same, and the land is flat, just like in Florida, and it's got the little service roads next to the highway, just like 595 has State Road 84 with the shops that go along that. Houston is built exactly like South Florida. It's the only place I've seen in the United States that's just like Florida. North Carolina, yeah, granted, I don't think public transportation is good in North Carolina, but you also don't have much of a population in North Carolina at all. There's never really much traffic. I mean, sure, there can be rush hour in downtown Charlotte or even downtown Raleigh, but to get from point A to point B on a regular basis, it's just smooth highways. This is unheard of, right? So I would just even this many cars on the road is not typical over there. So yeah, you need a car in North Carolina, but driving is much more simple.
Much more simple for North Carolina.
Less stressful. In North Carolina, it's simpler. In North Carolina, it's much less stressful, and the drivers are much more polite too.
Yeah, when I was in California, I just came here from San Francisco. I flew in yesterday. I was only there for a few hours. But I basically consider it kind of like Florida with like hills and mountains.
And trolleys.
Yeah, and trolleys. So yeah, actually San Francisco seems pretty accessible. Like you can get around there pretty easily without a car if you didn't choose to get a car. My brother had a car because I guess it's more convenient.
Well, I
But it's
spent 2
possible.
weeks in San Francisco once, and
Yeah, how was it? Your experience?
the bus system was great because the bus was always on time. The bus came by those bus stops every 15 minutes on the dot. It was always on time. There was a phone number that you could call from the bus stop to find out the status of the bus and when it was going to get there.
Oh, really?
And this was 12 years ago? No, 13 years ago that I was there. Spent a couple of weeks there at a gig as a camp counselor.
Oh.
And yeah, it was great. The public transportation in San Francisco back then was very reliable.
In Korea, for both trains and buses, it shows you like a countdown to the minutes for when it's going to arrive. Actually, for the trains, they don't usually show you when it's going to arrive by the minute. You can see it on your phone by the schedule. But when it comes to like the actual buses, because that's harder to tell, somehow it's tracking how far it is from your location, and you can see a minute countdown for how long it takes to get there and the stop it's at before it gets to you. It's all on a little board on the map that updates live. So it's pretty convenient. So even if you show up there and where is this bus? When is it coming? It'll automatically update so you can just see it instantly.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Sounds advanced.
Oh, I even saw that in France many years ago. Maybe like 10 years ago I saw that in France too.
Yeah. How old is the subway system in Korea?
They've had it for a long time now. It's very extensive. It goes every major part of the city. Almost anywhere you need to go in the city, you can use the subway to get there. It's very, very easy, very convenient. If you're in Seoul, my city only has like 3 or 4 stops that go through it, so you can't depend on the subway as much to get around. I'm about 30 minutes walking from my subway station as opposed to like 5 minutes in my former city. And those subways, I had a more linear city before, so you just basically had to take the subway out for that part of town, and it's nothing to walk east or west once you get out of there. So it was way more convenient in my older city, but that's Dongrycheon, which is I seriously miss that city so much. Alright, so how does it feel like this scene right here? Koreans just can't
There's
comprehend
Fort
this.
Lauderdale over there. I'm gonna get a shot of that.
Yeah, let me zoom in.
In fact, we're gonna get a good shot because we're about to climb up this ramp.
But like this whole highway complex mess, they put this whole scene here, looking out the window, this doesn't make sense to them. That's why they called it the Matrix, where it's like they don't understand like where does this road go and how does that road go, and it leads to here and connects to that and loops around this way and that way. It's like mind blowing.
They're thinking of that scene in The Matrix where Trinity was on the motorcycle, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, like this is just incomprehensible to Koreans. They have highways all over Korea, but nothing as wide and complex and intense as this.
Right.
Like this is basically about as big as the main highway is. Where are we going now? All the way down the plantation. Wow.
Yeah. Pine Island.
So what do you think about this whole new 595 highway expansion?
I hate it. It's terrible. It used to work just fine, and ever since they did this, it's become worse, I think.
Yeah, I grew up with the way it was before,
Yeah.
which for me was way normal. I had no issue merging in and merging out. It's the traffic for me, yeah, it was backed up and pretty bad, but it's the same as it is now.
I think they could have added a lane or two without creating this mess of bridges and overpasses and connections. And this is definitely overkill.
Yeah, see, this is more of the Matrix system that Koreans don't understand. Or I would say anyone. It's equally international. And over next to us, you can see the canal system. Basically, for people to move out here as far west as they have, this whole area used to be like Everglades and swamp. So they basically built large canals. You can start to see some of it now. You can see large canals and filled it in. so people can move further and further and further out west. Yeah, and this whole ramp system here, it just seems like a mind-boggling, complicated, unnecessary mess. And it really annoys me because you always knew when to get off. You just had your little exit to get off. Like this is Pine Island, you get off at the Pine Island exit. Now they combine some random exits together and you don't know where to get off and when. It's way more confusing.
It took a lot of getting used to. In the beginning, people were getting lost a lot.
I was worried when I was driving in here.
When you left for Korea, it wasn't like that, right?
No, it was starting to. They had like some weird makeshift things they set up while they were building those complicated ramps. So it seems like it's less complicated from the makeshift stuff, but it's more complicated than it originally was.
Yeah,
well, that makes sense.
Especially connecting to 441 from the I-595 is complicated.
Yeah.
This is Bow Campers. Yeah, so that place, Bow Campers, it's a sports bar that's owned by a former Miami Dolphins football player, and my group of friends, we go there often and watch football games during the year on Sundays, and we have a good time, have a few drinks. It's fun.
Oh, and how would you say that Plantation compares to Coconut Creek or other parts of South Florida that you've been in?
Well, Plantation is huge. It's not like Coconut Creek at all.
That has the one main strip.
Right. Yeah. Plantation is very expansive. It goes a long ways north and south and east and west. It's the major suburban area that's directly west of Fort Lauderdale, which is the major city of Broward County. And there's actually a lot of business in Plantation as well as a result of that. Particularly, there's a lot of recruiting agencies.
Really?
And where my wife works, which is where we're on our way to now, she works in Plantation. She works for Jewish Family Services, actually, for their Holocaust department, serving the Holocaust survivor population of South Florida.
How big is that population?
Significant. She can tell you more about it. In fact, we're going to be seeing her soon in a second here. But enough to keep her and several other people busy, and enough to where her job is really managing a group of volunteers. It's about, I think, 20 to 40 volunteers. The number seems to fluctuate a little bit. But there's enough work when it comes to helping these Holocaust survivors, live the remainder of their lives, and that there's a department built around it here in Jewish Family Services based out of Plantation.
All right, so this is on your mark. And remember, this is Ken from
Merkava Fitness.
Merkava Fitness. Check the link below, see what he has to offer. If you like this video, please like, comment, and consider subscribing.
And share.
Thanks, have a nice day.